Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you. In case you didn't know, I've basically started a podcast called Daunting 101, which was basically an ode to the initiative we started in my Young Adults Fellowship called Adulting 101, where we talk about all things adulting, so careers, finances, relationships, all that beautiful stuff, all those things that we may experience as adults that we were just not given a manual to. And we have the opportunity to share knowledge, to educate everyone, talk about our problems, talk about anything that we may be experiencing to our peers, and basically have the opportunity to help one another. And it's been really good in terms of the podcast to be able to get out the content that I want to get out there and consistently. So it's been really good. So if you haven't checked out the podcast, I'd really appreciate you if you do. I'm going to have the links for them in the description box so you can easily click on them and listen to my voice via Spotify, Apple or Google Play. And basically today's YouTube video is going to be a live recording of the episode that's coming out tomorrow, because it's something that I want to talk about on YouTube as well as on the podcast, so it makes sense to culminate the two. So I'm going to be talking about changing careers today. So if you're interested in hearing the podcast episode of me talking about things to keep in mind when changing careers, please make sure you keep on watching. And thank you so much in advance. If you have the opportunity to as well, you can like, you can subscribe, you can comment, all that beautiful stuff. I really appreciate it when people do. And yeah, I hope to hear you or see you in the next one. Hello everyone and welcome to the Adulting 101 podcast. My name is Ayo and I'm delighted to have you listening in. In case you haven't already, please make sure you check out my last episode called The Secret to Self-Awareness, where I basically talk about the 16 personalities quiz and how it's helped me to become more self-aware. So I've been able to see my personality on paper, understand my strengths and my weaknesses, and certain career progressions that I might be willing to take or happier to take than others, and situations that I thrive in or situations that don't work so well for me. It's been really good for making me understand myself better. So if you haven't checked out that episode or haven't even tried the quiz, please make sure you check it out. It might be helpful for you too. But for today, we're talking about changing careers. I'm basically going to talk about things to keep in mind when deciding whether to change careers or not, or whether you are going through a career change at the moment, things that might help you and encourage you through that process. So if you might be interested in that, please make sure you keep on listening. Cool, so we're talking about changing careers today, and I think that I'm now in a good position where I can talk about this properly, as I've experienced a career change and I've actually been in my new job or new career for about 9 months now. So I'm really happy to be able to finally do this episode. It's been on my mind for a while, and I just thought that there's certain things that I've gone through, certain things that I didn't know before changing careers that I just sort of wish I knew or wish I was prepared for, pardon me. So I just thought, let me do a podcast episode on it. It makes sense. And I mean, there's something that I always tell people around me, that you can easily change careers. It's never too late to do that. And now in the rise of social media and the rise of digital and tech and artificial intelligence, there's a lot of new career options out there that may not have necessarily been as prevalent when we were in university. So I'm really encouraging of the fact that our degrees don't necessarily limit where we can go in life. So in the ode to that, in understanding that, it only makes sense for me to bring back the balance to that and make sure I let people know what changing careers is like and what things they might need to be prepared for. Obviously, this is not the be all and end all, and it's only a 15-minute episode, so I'm not going to be going into great detail, but I just thought let me give a few tips, a few things here and there that might be helpful for people who might be changing careers or about to change careers. So cool, hopefully that is helpful, or it will be helpful. So let's get into it. So the first thing I basically wanted to say, it's on my list here, and it says be prepared to start from the bottom / a pay cut. Now we can go into this topic for a very long time, but it's actually the reality of the situation. If you've pursued a certain career for a certain length of time, if you go into a new career, you might have to be willing to go down a little bit or sidestep a little bit before you're able to progress in the new career path that you've chosen. Now, I'm not saying that that's always going to happen. There are situations and there's certain industries where you're able to sidestep or even sidestep up into a new career, but it's not always the case, and you have to be prepared for the possibility that you might have to go down a little bit or take a pay cut in that. So for me, luckily I was able to change careers without taking a pay cut, but I was prepared to, in the sense that I knew that I would have to start on a trainee level again. I knew that the career path I decided to choose, the trainee level, that isn't always paid as well as when I will progress. So I was willing to go through that, but I was just really lucky that I was able to get a trainee role that actually paid me more than where I was paid before, and paid me way more than I even expected to be paid. So it was really good in that sense. But I think even in terms of my research of changing careers and going through a new career path, that was something that people highlighted a lot, that if you are deciding to change careers, you have to be ready, especially if you've hit a certain level in your current career, you have to be ready to maybe sidestep down or sidestep across and be on the same level rather than progress immediately. Now, we can't forget the fact that whatever career you are in, whatever industry you're in, the chances are you have some really good transferable skills. So the best thing to do is to try and play that up as much as you can and use that to your advantage. For example, if you are a manager in your current career, you should be in a position where you have the skills to be a manager in your new career path. But it might just be that you have to go through certain basics, you have to go through certain traineeships before you're able to manage a team in that new industry or in that new career. So it's just something I would say be prepared for. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes when you decide that you're going to change careers, you realize that there's actually way more growth in your new career, and you're likely to hit a better salary in a quicker amount of time than your current career, which is a great thing. So you just have to be willing to go through a little bit of the grind at the beginning to get to a bigger reward in the future. And I would definitely say a lot of times it does pay off, especially if it's something that you're way more interested in or something that, you know, you're way more passionate about. So don't let it put you off, but just be prepared for it. The second thing I would say that you need to be prepared for is a different work culture. So for me, I was in the civil service beforehand. I was working in the Independent Office of Police Conduct, which is basically a branch of the civil service that investigate the police. It's sort of the HR for the police, if you like. And I was in investigations. So moving from investigations to a company secretary career is, I wouldn't say it's like the biggest career change ever, but it's definitely a different work culture, especially coming from public sector to private sector. I did work in the private sector when I had my first job, which was as a booking agent, but it was just very different. That's what I'd say, in the sense that when I had been in the public sector, I'd been in there for about 2.5 years. So I was very much, you know, accustomed to the way we worked in the civil service, in the sense of things like toil, so time off in lieu. So if you do more than your contracted hours, you get those contracted hours back. Things like, you know, not being expected to stay at work for too long. Things like, I don't know, just a less pressured atmosphere, I would say. I wouldn't say it was completely no pressure, because there's always pressure every now and then, especially when you're working in certain areas of investigations, or when you're on call and things like that. But it was definitely just a way more relaxed atmosphere. It was very public sector, may not necessarily have had the best processes or the most efficient processes, but it was still a really good laid back environment, which I think was really great to experience. And considering the work that I did, I think I was paid pretty well. So that's always a good thing of the civil service and the public sector. But moving into the private sector, it was great. I was paid more, but there was way more expected of me, which I was happy to do. But it's just a different work culture, if that makes sense. So coming into the private sector, now working in an insurance firm, there's just a different approach to work. Like, it's actually not even that pressured. I would say that in my department it's quite good, and where I work, my manager at the time actually gave me and instilled really good practices in me, in terms of don't stay too late, you know, only work your contracted hours, be efficient and get everything you need to get done, and then you can go with, you know, no pressure on your mind. But there were certain instances where I had to, you know, log on a Saturday to be able to do certain things for the board of directors, or there were times when I had to stay late and wait for things. And so different work cultures is something to definitely keep in mind. And I would say that no matter where you might be sidestepping to, so you may even go from a public sector to another public sector job and there's still a different work culture. You might go from private to private and there's still a different work culture. Or even in terms of changing careers, in terms of, you know, maybe freelancing or self-employment to 9 to 5 or the other way around, there's just a different work culture that you have to be ready and prepared for. Of course, the best way you can arm yourself is through, you know, educating yourself, research and all of that, but until you experience it, you won't really know. So I think you just need to be prepared for that and just be ready to adjust to that as well. I definitely was prepared to not have a public sector mindset when moving into a private company, and I was really making sure to feel out, see how people work, see what is expected of me, see, you know, how many hours people do, if people are very strict when it comes to their working hours or not, and just keeping my manager informed about the way I work and what is expected of me in an effort to make sure that I don't get my wires crossed and there isn't an, you know, I think even a lot of people that experience maybe working in the public sector in the NHS or something, when they go to a private company, they realize that people are already looking at them through a like, oh, you work for a public company lens. So I wanted to really make sure I offset that and have people understand that, you know, I'm very interested in making sure that I fit into this new culture. So it's just really important to make sure you arm yourself with knowledge, be prepared to shift and to adapt to the environment that you're in. But it can be a great thing, it can be a really good thing. You might realize that in your new career you actually prefer the culture there. Maybe it's way more laid back, maybe there is a really good work-life balance, maybe there's great incentives, maybe there's great ways that people socialize, you know, there's great things as part of a company culture that you can look forward to. So I definitely wouldn't say like worry about it, but it's just something I wouldn't, you know, keep on the back burner. I think it's something you should keep in mind when changing your careers. The next thing I've got on my list is actually to not let your first job dictate, you know, your view of your new profession. So I don't really need to worry about this because I'm quite happy where I am at the moment. But I recognize that when you're changing your careers, the only thing you have to judge it is based on your experience of that company and of that career in that company. So you might decide you want to pursue, I don't know, tech or something in AI, and the first company you work for is awful. The first company you work for doesn't have a good work culture or has a really bad mindset when it comes to the way they govern their business. And something like that might actually put you off the whole profession or the whole career as a whole. But I would say make sure you don't do that. Don't judge your profession based on that company, and the same thing the other way around, if you like. So don't judge that company based on the profession as well. Make sure you look at them in isolation, because that's how life works. To be honest, you might not like the first company you work for, but the second company you work for could be great. Or you might love the first company you work for, want to progress into another company, and then suddenly you're like, whoa, actually companies can be a bit mad. So I would just definitely say make sure you keep an open mind, because it's so easy when you decide to do something different. It's sort of like your body or your mind is waiting for you to regret it sometimes. Like when you try something new, you're just a bit like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have changed. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. You sort of second guess and you worry that you may have made a mistake, but don't think of that in the offset. Like don't let that be the first point in your mind, because the chances are there's a reason why you decided to pursue this new career change, and there's going to be some great benefits, but it might take a while before you're able to see them. You know, like I said from the beginning, you're going to be starting from the bottom, so there's going to be certain things you have to get used to. You might need to get used to people telling you what to do again. You might have to get used to not knowing what to do, whereas in your old career maybe you were way more, you know, self-sufficient, you were way more independent. So just be ready for the change, and just make sure that it doesn't discourage you in the times when things can get really low. That's always going to be a given when it comes to a new role or a new company where you're somewhere that you're just not as familiar with. You might have your down times, but just make sure that you just see the bigger picture and remember the reason why you decided to change career. You know, remember the new prospects ahead of you, and hopefully that will ride you through the bad times. And the last thing I have on the list is you have to be ready. As much as I've just said, you know, don't judge your company or profession based on your first experience. You have to be ready to accept it might not be right for you too. So again, this is not drawing from personal experience, but it's something that I had to come to terms with from the beginning. I was hoping that, you know, being a company secretary would be right for me, but I was also ready for the idea that I might try it and I might not like it, or I might not want it, or I might realize that actually this isn't for me, and that has to be okay as well. I think the beauty of the, you know, the time we're living in. As they say, you know, in this new age, we are able to sidestep and move careers and change jobs as much as we like. And I know people will say, you know, because of your CV, maybe don't try and jump too much. And I would say, yeah, always try and stay in a company for a year if you can. But to be honest, in the new age we're living in, there is a huge workforce and there's so much potential. There's so much development, so much research, so much tech, so much AI, a lot of new professions, a lot of new jobs out there, that our prospects are quite wide. And to be honest, I even think they're still saying at the moment that there's more jobs than there are people. So there is quite a huge plethora of jobs to choose from. So if something doesn't work out for you in one sector, you can always change and try something new. And to be honest, it will make you a better worker. I believe that anyway, because there are so many transferable skills. There's so many things that you likely did in your previous company or in your previous career that will allow you to excel in other new careers. I was telling my friend, I think it was yesterday, that the work that he's done in his company, he's completely transformed their culture. And something like that is what a lot of companies need. And that is a skill that you can get in any sector, but you can apply to any sector as well. So I would definitely say that even if you decide to change careers or decide to try something new, change your company, change your job, or anything, and you think, oh my days, what have I done? You can think, oh my days, what have I done? But just remember that there's actually so many other prospects out there for you. So don't feel like that is the be all and end all. And that's basically the end of the podcast. That's all I really wanted to say when it came to changing careers. Hopefully those tips were somewhat useful for you, especially if you're thinking about it or if you're going through it right now. I definitely know that whilst I have been in my company, there's been certain things where I'm just like, oh, I should know that. On my days, why don't I know that? And I'm a bit like, actually, I've only been in this role for, 5-6 months. So if I don't know that, that's completely fine, and everything is a work in progress. But you just have to be willing to, put in the work to start from the basic level. And you can go very far, no matter what you've decided to pursue. So good luck in your new career journeys, or if you're thinking about it, good luck in terms of your research and your development. I wish you the utmost best. And if you haven't already, please make sure you check me and my team out on socials. On Instagram, you can follow me at AY00LU, and you can follow my team at Room 113 Official. We'd love to have you let us know your thoughts. So don't hold back. You can DM us, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube comments. I appreciate them. And yeah, have a blessed and beautiful week. And I hope to I hope to have you listening in the next one. That's what I should be saying. Thank you guys so much. If you got to the end of this video, I really appreciate you. I really hope that you found that useful. I really love talking about careers on YouTube and talking about my experiences. I love telling my story. I don't think it's like the most interesting story, but I think it's a story to tell regardless. And I know that I would have benefited from this about a year or 2 years ago. So if you have the opportunity to, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that beautiful stuff. If there's anything that you want to know about in general, if there's any topic that you want me to talk about, or you want to know anything about, please make sure you Insta DM me, Twitter DM me, whatever it is. And yeah, have a blessed and beautiful week, like I said. And definitely try and check out the podcast. I think it's probably the best content I've been able to bring out. My YouTube is not always there, but my podcasts tend to be pretty okay. Take care. Bye.